Chapter 1. People. My friend Leslie was born female, but from the time Leslie was 4 years old, they experienced life as a boy. Leslie felt like a boy, thought like a boy, played like a boy. When all the other little girls wanted to play tea or house, I wanted to play football, Leslie told me. At the age of 4, I proclaimed that Wonder Woman was going to be my wife, and we would have superpowered children. I thought nothing of it. Leslie also remembers loving Jesus wholeheartedly from a very young age. My earliest memories are of the church nursery and Sunday school. I have always known that I was a beloved child of God. I cannot remember a time when God's truth was not an integral part of my life. Leslie's struggle increased with age, making it hard to fit in at youth group. I started to keenly feel a distance between myself and other girls, Leslie remembers. I could not relate to their emerging womanhood. They were spending hours putting on makeup, styling their hair, and talking about boys. None of this interested me in the least. Like most kids wrestling with their gender identity, Leslie was wrestling alone. No one to talk to, no one to listen. Nobody seemed to care. Leslie sank into dark periods of depression, and when isolation met depression, suicidal thoughts quickly followed. I lived this charade until high school rolled around, Leslie said, becoming increasingly despondent and suicidal. Finally, Leslie summoned the courage to go to the pastor for help. Leslie explained their dysphoria to him, hoping for some pastoral guidance. Instead of offering guidance, Leslie recalled, "My pastor escorted me out the back door of his office and told me to never come back again. And I didn't. I didn't step foot in a church for the next 18 years. I hated Christians, especially pastors, from that point on." Leslie, desperate to follow Jesus, was ushered out of the church simply for struggling with gender dysphoria. This book is about people, beautiful, honest, and courageous people like Leslie, and people like Carol and Stephanie. Stephanie grew up as a stereotypically feminine girl on the autism spectrum. When she was 13 years old, she told her mother, Carol, that she was transgender. Stephanie's declaration seemed to come out of nowhere. No prior history of gender dysphoria, no tomboyish interests or behavior. Carol found out that Stephanie had just heard a presentation about being transgender at school, a school where over 5% of the student population identified as transgender or non-binary. Carol took Stephanie to a gender clinic to seek counsel. The clinician told Carol that, "I must refer to my daughter with masculine pronouns, call her by a masculine name, and buy her a binder to flatten her breasts." He recommended no therapy, and there was no consideration of the social factors that obviously affected her thinking. I was directed to put her on puberty-blocking drugs. Doctors often recommend puberty-blocking drugs for prepubescent children wrestling with their gender identity. But we don't know a lot about the long-term health risks when kids take these drugs. From what we do know, they may have an adverse effect on a person's bones, heart, and brain. Nevertheless, clinicians told Carol that puberty blockers were the best way to treat her 13-year-old daughter. I was falsely assured that these drugs were well studied and that they were a perfectly safe way for her to explore gender. I was told that if I did not comply, she would be at higher risk of suicide. Carol feared that if she pushed back or questioned the medicalization of her child, she might lose custody of her, since such questioning could be viewed as bigotry and lack of acceptance. In New Jersey, where Carol and Stephanie lived, the Department of Education officially encourages schools to report such parents. Still, Carol wondered, why are physicians medicalizing children in the name of an unproven, malleable gender identity? This book is about people like Leslie, Stephanie, and Carol, and people like Alan. Alan grew up as a pastor's kid, but couldn't wait to leave the church after he graduated high school. Ever since he could remember, Alan had an unchosen desire to dress, act, and behave like a woman. He had no one to talk to, no one to guide him, and seeing the church's attitude towards LGBTQ people made him feel even more isolated and ashamed. He also grew tired of the hypocrisy in the church. Despite being a pastor's kid, I'd become upset at the hypocrisy of Christians, saying they were full of grace but not putting it into practice, especially concerning LGBTQ+ issues.